Well, we have 6 children, and we have 8 grandchildren. All of our children seem to marry reasonably late, and then they had all their educational, shall we say, requirements behind them. And then, you know, they started having either 1 or 2 children, and that's fine. You know, everybody has to make their lives according to what they think is appropriate at their time of living. So anyway, 6 children and 8 grandchildren. That's correct. And at that point, you know, J.B. Stone had been mayor, and he had decided to run for judge of the Kettering Municipal Court. And so therefore, he was not going to be running, you know, for a second term for mayor. So I thought, well, I think I'll try it and just see what happens. Well, of course, at that point, it was highly unusual, you know, for a woman to run for mayor. But I thought, well, why not try it and see what occurs? Centerville's a fabulous place in which to live. And I'm trying to think now, when I ran for mayor, I think our youngest child was a senior in high school. When I ran for the first time for the city council, the youngest one was in the 8th grade. So I thought, well, let's try it now and just see what happens. So the rest, I guess, is history or something. Prior to that, maybe women thought they would not be as accepted. And now, all you need to do is look around. There's many members, city councils who are mayor. There are many mayors in the greater Montgomery County who are mayors, and also on the national scene in many larger cities. So I think that's almost one of the biggest things. The larger cities now, metropolitan cities, have many more mayors than ever before. So, but it shouldn't be about gender. It just has to be about interest in serving, and to a degree qualifications, and to how you relate to the public. The League of Women Voters sparked some interest in national, state, and local issues. And I was a member there for quite a few years before I got into a lot of other things. But I was interested. And so I thought, well, let's try it and see what happens. And I did, and you know the rest of the story, so to speak. Anytime you undertake a major project, and you know this, even with things you do, there are ups and downs, and everything does not run along an even keel at all times. So there are ups and downs, but you still have to have faith in the future and always be ready to compromise on some issues and proceed accordingly, I guess. But nothing's perfect, just like raising a family. We ceased being a very small village of maybe 5,000 people 40 years or so ago. And I think with so many new people moving in, I guess I've always felt so strongly that there should be a balance between basic services, which everyone, you know, just accepts and expects, but basic services and enrichment. And I think enrichment, as far as quality of life, if you are deciding to raise your family here, and if you have decided to retire here, there should be some enrichment and some fun things and interesting things that should enhance somebody's quality of life. And I think that basically was it, namely a balance between basic services and enrichment, and then we kind of went from there. And the council was always so supportive of these things. And yeah, you know, the golf course, of course, was so very important. And well, Benham's Grove, that all happened very much in the same, almost the same year, but it might have overlapped an extra year. And then Stubbs Park. You know, Stubbs Park was just nothing. And I said, well, we should either do something with it or get rid of it. You know, it shouldn't be overgrown. And so Tom Stoles, you know, who was a wonderful resident, not just the city, but actually the township, he was very, very interested in this. And so he helped as far as helping to arrange certain things. And I think you can see his ideas of the little bridges, you know, throughout, and the trails, you know, as well. So, and of course, other people have done so many more things as far as the city and enrichment. You know, by enrichment, I don't just mean things that the city has done, but, you know, you have the libraries. I mean, I just can't say enough about the libraries and how they reach out to every single age segment, you know, in the community. The Park District does the same thing. And I think everything that meshes together does make the city and the township a very wonderful place in which to live. As far as one of the segments, as far as age is concerned, Hither Green is just extremely important, and I think that has evolved so beautifully over the years. We had a lot of competent people putting all this together, and it has turned out far beyond what I could have anticipated. If you want to look at the golf course, which of course is out our back door, I had no idea it would evolve into over 900 homes. You know, when you try to get something off the ground, you think, oh well, it all sounds wonderful. And it has evolved very beautifully. And of course, Greg Horn had a big part of putting the golf course together. And also, I mean, it was his idea as far as how we were going to water. You know, it was his idea to expand the lake across the street and have the pumping stations, and that in turn would be watering all the fairways. And I thought that was really ingenious, you know, on his part. That helped to keep the cost of watering our fairways down. And of course, Steve Marino and all the other pros that have come before us have all run Yankee Trace in such a professional way. It was all farmland, yes. And then of course we had to acquire the land in order to even think about this. And it just seemed to all come together at some point. So, and I can't say enough about subsequent city councils and mayors. They have all seen fit to keep up everything, and they increased it by another 9 holes, so we now have 27 holes as opposed to only the 18 holes. And so I certainly can't take any credit for that, but I think it's all turned out very nicely. Someone came to my office one morning and said, you know, I think you like green space for the city, and would you be interested in looking at some green space that my parents have? Her name was Amy. And I said, well, where are you talking about? She said, it's right in the heart of the city. So she brought out this map, this small little plat map. I said, oh, you mean the Gerber property? And she said, yes. She said, I'm a Gerber, and my parents still live there. My mother still lives there, and they had been trying to sell that property for quite a few years. And everything, she said, everything that was put together had fallen through. And she was wondering if the city would be interested, and they would be willing to drop the price significantly. So I said, well, I'll run it by the city council and the city manager, and Darrell Kenning was city manager at that time. So I ran it by them. They said, well, let's look at it. And so Darrell Kenning was the one that put the contract together, and that was the beginning. Of course, as you know, when you go from an individual property owner and then you are going to have something that's open to the public, you have to do all sorts of renovations and things of that sort. So And again, the city did step forward and do all the appropriate things necessary, because very rarely do you find 8 or 10 acres of green space in the heart of the city. And if you didn't do it then, they probably would have been lost forever, because it often had been talked about as a restaurant strip or something of that sort. Not that I have anything against restaurant strips, but for that entire 8 or 10 acres, we just think that is kind of the green gem in the heart of the city. Oh, and I love Stubbs Park, the way the amphitheater has, turned out so beautifully. I sit there at the Americana Festival, not the festival, but the concert the night before, and I look around and I think, this is hometown USA. It could be used as any type of a film clip in any type of movie to depict what hometown USA is, and I just think it's grand. And I think enhancement is so important, and when you compare then and now, you would never recognize Main and Franklin. At that time, we were still trying to get rid of the gas stations and things of that sort in order to, enhance the city. And since then, the city councils and the mayor seem fit to work with, Panera Bread, graders, city barbecue, and it just has changed, the crossroads, so to speak. And I think it has brought so many people in to just kind of to enjoy the center of the city. They talked about putting in, some bus stops. Well, I saw the, I guess the prototype or the picture of what, was thought of. And I said, it should be more interesting. If you're taking a bus, you should have a much nicer place to wait for a bus than in one of these other, I don't know, sort of very basic bus stop things. So then somebody brought in this gazebo, and I said, oh, that's perfect. So that's what, that's how that became part and parcel of many of our bus stops around. I think every decade, has had different stamps on the city, so to speak. And what amazes me now is all the activity we're having commercially, a la Miami Valley Hospital at Wilmington and 675. That was something that we thought of as into the future. We know that that land was going to be developed eventually, and it never was, and now it is. And I think it's a tremendous improvement to that quadrant of the city. When I went out of office and I decided not to run for a 4th term, I was mayor, as you know, 12 years. Afterwards, I would ride down the streets of the city and think, oh, this is so wonderful, and I don't even have to think about it now. And it, subsequent councils just have done a wonderful job with enhancing the city and making, these wonderful decisions regarding the development and things of that sort. And sometimes I do feel that if you do come up with wonderful things, unless the subsequent city councils and the city manager does not go along with it and keep enhancing it, then it's questionable whether it was such a good idea in the first place. But I'm very pleased that the subsequent city councils and mayors have seen fit to make all these things still a wonderful reality, for the city of Centerville. I did not have a magnificent plan. We just, because you have to realize too, it's never one person. I could have had all the ideas in the world, and if the rest of the council had no interest in it, it really didn't make any difference. So I think it's always a collaboration with the city council that you have in place, as well as the city manager. The council can decide all these wonderful things, but if you don't have a city manager, and we've been very fortunate, when I've been involved, namely with Darrell Kenning and Greg Horn, they've been able to carry out many of the ideas that the council and the mayor has put forth. So it is a unified project, really. It can't be just something that the mayor decides to do and everybody, does it. It has to be a collaboration. Probably Paul's job. We both grew up in Cincinnati, and we were married while Paul was in the Air Force. And so when he got out of the Air Force in, let me see, we were married in '54. He got out of the Air Force probably in '56 or '57, and he was applying for jobs. Well, all the jobs were in the Dayton area. They were not in Cincinnati. This was the place so many Cincinnatians came, like when they were getting out of the Air Force or the Army or something like that, looking for jobs. They came to Dayton because Dayton was really the tremendously growing area. So we came here and started out in one of the Huber homes in Huber South, just off of Lamb Road and Stroop Road. We were there 3 years. Then we moved to Washington Township on Saddlewood. That's around the Normandy Farms area. So we were there 6 or 7 years. And then we moved to Pleasant Hill Drive, the Zengelplatt Pleasant Hill Drive in Centerville. And the main reason for that, we were ready to make a change because we needed a much larger house by that time. We had 6 children. And we thought about a lot of different areas. And I said, we've got to go there because it's going to eliminate my driving probably at least 50 to 75%, because the kids could walk to whatever school, they could walk to, whether it was Incarnation or Stingley, Tower Heights, Centerville High School. Of course, they had to take the bus to Alter. But that in essence was the reason. And then Zengel did build us a very formidable house, and we did raise our family of 6 children there, and we were there for over 30 years. And then fast forward, we're here on the Yankee Trace Golf Course for the past 16 years now. Right, Pleasant Hill. And we still see so many people and so many of our friends that we knew at Pleasant Hill, whether it was Pleasant Hill Swim Club or our neighborhood bridge club or something of that sort. Pleasant Hill is just a tremendous neighborhood, I think, in the Centerville, Washington Township area. It's just a fabulous neighborhood to have raised our family, because I think we moved in there when John was, our youngest child, was 1 year old. And so we were there for a good 30 years or more until everybody left home, either for college or beyond and whatever. And so it was just a fabulous place to grow up in, for the children to grow up in. And I can't say enough about the Pleasant Hill and that particular neighborhood too. Well, yeah, this grouping here, there's about 30 houses. We were probably maybe the 10th one to move in, in this area. But then there were other areas that had started to develop, and some of them were the what they called the estate versions, and they were not patio homes, but they were, much larger homes, but they were golf course lots, and that part, had started to develop too. And then, I don't know, a few years later, just everything just seemed to bloom very, very quickly. And so after a period of time, I think we're pretty fully built out now, except for the additional homes that they're putting up in the extra 9 holes that they put in. And so some of those are still golf course lots, but they have gotten into the attached, either townhouses or attached doubles, and that's worked out very well too. It is truly an anchor, I think, for the future development of this entire area. And we are definitely enjoying our living here because it's perfect for this stage of our life. We can get into every room here very easily, no matter what might lie ahead, you know, as far as our ability, you know, in our later years. And it's just been perfect for us. It's important. You mentioned stepped away, and I did. It's important when you step away that you not try to micromanage anything, and you just kind of should enjoy what happens after you. And I think that's what I have done. I don't think I ever tried to interfere in any way, shape, or form, because it's a new era, and people should have the chance to go without any advice from someone from the past. Since I was out of the picture, so to speak, and Paul was nearing retirement and that type of thing, I said, really? I think you should start getting involved in the city. And so, of course, Paul was on the Board of Tax Appeals, and of course, he's on the Hither Green Board. He's on the Washington Township Centerville Foundation Board, and has helped with the Calumet golf tournament and with Hither Green's golf tournament. And he's probably been extremely busy with all of that type of activities. And after I don't know if you want to say retired, but when I stopped being in office, it did allow me then more time to interface with our children. By that time, most of our children were living either on the West Coast or the East Coast, and we were starting to have quite a few grandchildren. And I did have the opportunity to visit them for a little longer length of time, or if they needed a babysitter or something for a period of a few days or a week, I was always happy to do that. And again, it was a different stage of my life, and I enjoyed that very much. Well, I guess I would differentiate politics between local politics and local elected officials as opposed to statewide and nationwide. The local elected officials are the officials that are closest to every voter in the area, because usually what the local officials do are the things that affect the quality of life and often the living standards of people in the community. And so I feel that they are a group of officials closest to the people. Now, the second part of my answer, as far as what I think of politics or how it has changed these days, I think on the state and the national level, things have gotten too nasty. I just don't think things should be that way. And no one seems, I don't know, the political parties, they have no respect for one another, and everything's a big issue. And I think things have really not improved at the state and the national level. But I still love local politics. Just to go for it if you really have an interest. First thing you have to do is get 150 signatures. 100 really, but you really should get 150 signatures of voters, in your area. Turn them into the Board of Elections, and you're a candidate. It's not like the state and the national issues, where you have to have the backing of your party, or you have to have a lot of money and that type of thing. It really is grassroots, and it's probably the nicest way to go. If you don't have the interest, nor the time, to a degree, and you need the interest and you need the time, and be able to work it into your schedule, whether it's family-wise or job-wise in many cases. I do appreciate your coming and trying to capsulize a little bit of what happened way back when, because yeah, it kind of came as a shock to me. 30 years since I first ran for mayor, and yes, it kind of, shakes a lot of memories, and I never thought it was 30 years, but it was. So I do appreciate your bringing all these things to my attention, shall we say. But I do want you to know that I've enjoyed every phase of my life. My life is stretching longer and longer these days, but every phase has just been very worthwhile, and I have enjoyed it immensely.